Hey, what's up, everyone? It's me, your boy Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk, and welcome to my brand new show called NFL Matchups. Now, every Wednesday, I'm going to be dropping these videos, and we're going to be basically breaking down all of the action and the events that took place on the prior week, and also get you guys ready for the upcoming week around the National Football League. We're going to talk about some questions that we have from certain games or certain teams or even players, some takeaways, biggest surprises, and like I said, breaking down the upcoming week, and also talk a little bit about fantasy football and how some of these matchups may affect you, and also wrap up the show with some clutch or not so much players or teams from the previous week. So you guys don't want to miss out, man. I'm very excited to bring you this show. Like I said, every Wednesday we're going to be dropping this show. But listen, hey, without further ado, but before we get into the show, make sure if you haven't subscribed to the Grid Network channel, make sure you do so now. We really appreciate that. But let's get things rolling. But before we do that, let's strap up and get ready for NFL matchups.
We're going to be here all day, baby. I like this kind of party. I like this kind of party, baby.
Welcome in, welcome back, man. Hope you guys are having a wonderful, fantastic day. And I'm glad that you're spending some time here watching this video or my new show called NFL Matchups with me, your boy Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk. So let's start from the top. Like, we got lots to digest, lots to break down. Let's talk about some questions and some takeaways from week one around the National Football League. And let's start with the Monday night game. Two teams maybe going in two different directions, but let's start with the San Francisco 49ers. Now, just an hour before the game, we learned that Christian McCaffrey was not going to be able to go. And so he was out. So a lot of people were scrambling. People trying to wonder what's going on with him. And right now, his health or when he will return is a little bit uncertain, right? So that's a question and some takeaways that we have from this game. Now, obviously, they didn't miss a beat. They still rushed for over, I believe, over 140 yards against a vaunted New York Jets defense. But long term, as far as Christian McCaffrey, my question is, will he have enough time to heal? Right? Obviously, from what we saw last night, they just dismantle the Jets, and it looks like, well, maybe they don't need him. Maybe they can sit him a couple weeks until he's 100% healthy. So that's a question that we're going to have to see moving forward, how this plays out for the San Francisco 49ers, especially if you're a fan of that team. Now, step in Jordan Mason. Now, he started in place of Christian McCaffrey, and the guy went off for 147 yards on 28 carries. Now, no one ever heard of this guy. At least I've never heard of the guy before, man, unless you're a 49ers fan. Then you know who this is. And honestly, the fans that I've talked to for this particular team, they didn't even know who he was. But he stepped in and played superbly for this team and getting the win over the Jets. So the questions for me is that, will this be sustainable? I think so. Kyle Shanahan has constructed this team to basically be next man up. And that's what they did last night. They played complementary football. They got after the Jets. They bullied them across the field, and they ran the football because that's what the 49ers want to do. They want to establish their dominance, and it starts with the run game. And signing or re-signing guys or extending guys like Trent Williams is definitely a plus for that, right? And that's exactly what they did last night. So I guess moving forward, and any big takeaways from this particular team is the health concerns for Christian McCaffrey, because at some point you're going to need him in that championship run down the stretch. Will it be enough that they can go and win a couple regular season games without him? But when you start getting into the playoffs, you're going to need your best studs, and CMC is definitely a stud on this particular team, and hell, the league itself. So we're gonna have to wait and see what happens with that, and it's going to be a developing story as we move forward. Now, let's talk about the other team, the New York Jets. Now, Aaron Rodgers, he's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles tear. 20 months, hasn't played or done anything at that type of speed last night, and it showed last night. Now, here's the thing about the Jets. There were some things that I saw that were a little positive, but then a lot of it was a lot of rust too. Like, I was very surprised by this team is the fact that they got bullied, like I mentioned before. They really didn't play Jets football, especially from the defensive side of things. Now, back to Aaron Rodgers, there's going to be some rust, okay? There were some glimpses of him making some really nice throws, And then the interception where he tried to force the ball to Garrett Wilson, where eventually it was tipped and intercepted, right? So those are the things you don't want to see, especially for an aging quarterback who doesn't have maybe the mobility that he used to have before. And at times I felt like the game was moving too fast for him. And granted, they had a tough draw. You pulled the defending NFC champions in the 49ers, and you're on the road on a Monday night. You got to go cross country. That's tough. Now, the good news for the Jets is that they're up. Their next 4 games are against teams that they should probably beat. I know next week they're playing the Titans. That's got to be a win, even though it's on the road. And I know the Titans are licking their wounds, but the Jets definitely have an opportunity to kind of build off of what happened. Now, Titans ain't going to be no better than the 49ers. Actually, they're not going to be better than the 49ers. So that's the plus. So Jets fans, don't worry. I think you guys are going to get healthy. You guys are going to kind of establish what you guys need to do. And Aaron Rodgers is going to get back on pace. Will he be of Aaron Rodgers of old? Of course not. He's 40 years old coming off an Achilles tear. But the level of competition that you guys have in the next couple weeks, in about a month or so, it's not going to compare to what you guys saw on Monday night. So biggest takeaway, if you're a Jets fan, don't worry. You guys are going to be okay. I think you guys have a chance to go 4-0 in your next 4 games. And that should put you in a position to be fighting for a wild card, or hell, even contending for the AFC East division. Okay. All right. Moving along, let's talk about the Sunday night game, but more particularly the team that looked like a mash unit, and that was the LA Rams. Now, a lot of setbacks happened. Now, one thing I can take away from this game was that they show a lot of fight, a lot of heart. Sean McVay's team really did not quit. I mean, Puka Nacua gone for at least 7 more weeks. He's on the injured reserve, and they literally lost their whole starting offensive line. I have never seen an NFL team on opening day, just have a random offensive line unit out there. And that's what they had to do against a vaunted Detroit Lions defensive pass rush, led by Aiden Hutchinson. So to me, the biggest question is, will they be able to overcome that? Cooper Kupp balled his behind off. Him and Matthew Stafford were in sync. I believe Cooper Kupp had like 14 catches or something crazy like that on 21 targets, over 120 something yards and a touchdown. And they were in that game. Mind you, this was a close game in I believe it was the wild card or the divisional round last year, right? And we almost got a glimpse of the Rams pulling it off again, right? And so, but they didn't. They fell a little short. But if you're a Rams fan, they did show some grit, so some heart. But the problem is that, will this be sustainable moving forward? These injuries, it's one thing if it was like week 13, 14, maybe they can figure something out. But this is week 1 and your team is just depleted. And that was my biggest thing going into the season for the Rams. If you guys watched my NFC West divisional preview, was injuries, right? Will they be able to overcome that? And so far they've been bitten by the bug automatically. And as I don't know what else to say, just they better just hold on, man, because it's a long ways before the season's over. And the Rams are definitely reeling right now, especially on the injuries front there. Okay. All right. Moving on. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Man, what a phenomenal performance by the Dallas Cowboys. They played complimentary football. Mike McCarthy he drew up a very ideal game plan where everyone performed. The defense performed well. Offense did well. Special teams chimed in there. Dak Prescott, after signing that mega contract, a little pedestrian, 156 yards for a touchdown. He didn't throw for 300, but he didn't need to. That game was kind of already in hand. The way they got after it early on the Browns, the defense led by Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Eric Kendricks, who is looking to be a really good free agent signing by Jerry Jones and crew. He got an interception, and I believe they had 5 or 6 sacks. They got after Deshaun Watson like it was like these lawsuits that are coming after him. And then Kevontae Turpin, I mean, what a phenomenal special teams play on that punt return for a touchdown. You can't say nothing about him. But the well-balanced output of this particular team, for you Cowboy fans out there, I guess, including myself, a little optimistic. But the thing for me with the Cowboys is not what they're doing now during the regular season. It's postseason. So we'll have to wait and see. So on the flip side of that, the Browns looked terrible. The offense looked disjointed. Deshaun Watson looked like he had never even played quarterback ever in the National Football League. They looked off rhythm. Mind you, they were missing 2 of their key components on the offensive line, and Jared Jedrick, or I forgot his name. His last name is Willis, and Jack Conklin. Now, They should be back soon. Will that make them any better? It can make them any worse. So I can maybe see them maybe not giving up 5 or 6 sacks, maybe 3 or 4. But that's the Cleveland Browns. But offensively, it was tough. It was a tough watch. And if you're a fan of this particular team, you're probably thinking Joe Flacco looked way better than Deshaun Watson. And guess what? They didn't want to resign him. Why? Because they didn't want to create some type of quarterback controversy. Well, in my opinion, I think there is a quarterback controversy because Deshaun Watson, I think it is what it is for him. I think he's cooked, right? But you can't just get rid of him because of that crazy contract that literally they offered to him or gave him that reset the market for all quarterbacks, and now they got to pay that up. So I believe it's like $230 million guaranteed to Deshaun Watson, who is now facing another legal dispute by someone allegedly saying that he was up to no good. So we'll have to. I don't know. It's definitely a interesting situation for this particular team, but I'm not surprised. The Browns just continue to make bad decisions after bad decisions. And the sad part is that this team has talent. I mean, listen, Baker Mayfield is way better than Deshaun Watson now at this point. And they did not want Baker Mayfield. He left, kind of journeyed around a couple different teams. Now he's found his home in Tampa Bay. And now look, they're stuck with the predator, their alleged predator in Deshaun Watson. So boy, that's a shambles. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the Chargers. Interesting because it's Jim Harbaugh's inaugural game with this particular team, with the Chargers being the head coach. Offensively, they struggled in the first half. They kind of got some things going late in the game, in particularly with the run game. J.K. Dobbins literally balled out, kind of carried that team to the win over the Raiders. Justin Herbert, I know he's kind of getting back to everything. You know, he was hurt, missed a tremendous amount of time last year due to the injury that he sustained. Now, Ladd McConkey, this is not the fantasy section of the show, but Ladd McConkey is a name you might want to look at, because if you think about it, they lost Mike Williams, Keenan Allen's gone, Austin Eckler's gone, Quentin Johnston, we already know what his exploits are. He kind of, it is what it is with him. Ladd McConkey might be a name that you guys want to maybe be on the lookout for if you can go claim him in your waivers in your fantasy draft, or in your fantasy league, because I feel like Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey are going to kind of develop some type of relationship. But what we do know is that the Chargers are going to run the football. And that draft pick from Notre Dame, Joe Alt, looking pretty good there. He pretty much locked up Max Crosby. And that's how often do you hear that? It doesn't happen very often. So, and they got Rashawn Slater. So that line is ready and primed to run the football. And I think that's exactly what Jim Harbaugh is going to want to do with the Chargers. So those are some good takeaways for that. But again, offensively, they don't have the firepower that they're used to having. So it's a little different scheme, but I think it's going to fit well for them as they progress throughout the season. All right. Now, the other team, the Raiders, Antonio Pierce, some questionable decisions down the stretch, especially about, I believe it was like 7 minutes left in the game. It was 4th and 1. They were on the Chargers side of the field. They punted it. Now, I live in Las Vegas. I listen to a lot of talk radio here. A lot of fans are okay with what happened because why? The offense sucked, right? But whose fault is that? We all knew this offense was going to suck, right? You have no quarterback, and you have a lame duck wide receiver who, quote unquote, says he's not disgruntled, but come on. We all know. We got eyes. We're not blind. We hear what's going on. He's upset. He does not want to be there. He won't come out and say that because that's the kind of guy he is. But physically, you got Gardner Minshew or O'Connell thrown to you. It's not going to happen. That offense is not going to go anywhere without our legitimate quarterback back there. And they failed to address that this offseason. Now, turnovers was something that plagued them in this game. Gardner Minshew had a fumble, and I believe an interception, and then Zamir, I think it's Zamir Wright or some guy's name, the running back for the Las Vegas Raiders. He had a fumble in that game. Alexander Madison was maybe a bright spot for there. He took a quick little dump pass, took it to the house. But one thing, if you are Raiders fans, you can hang your hat on is that the defense looked good for the most part. Legitimate, pretty good defense. Maybe top 10 fringe on maybe top 15. But the defense is going to have to be something that's going to have to carry this team because the offense can't even hold a cup of water. Raiders fans, I think you're in trouble because you can't put your defense out there for so long. It's only a matter of time before attrition sets in and they're going to give up big plays. And that's exactly what happened down the stretch with the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Chargers. Okay, talking about another team with some offensive ineptitude. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this was a strange one because Russell Wilson was picked to be the starter for the season. Has I believe it's a calf injury that kind of he re-aggravated in camp. It just really kind of hasn't really gone away. Steps in Justin Fields. They scored no touchdowns. Literally, their kicker produced their points. We all know what Justin Fields is. He's gonna pull that ball down if the read isn't there, and he's gonna run. Now he completed 17 of 23 pass completions for 156 yards, but he rushed for like 45, 46 yards, something like that on 14 attempts. So that's what he's gonna do. So if you have any of these guys on running back on your fantasy team, like Najee Harris or Warren, you're kind of cooked, because if Justin Fields is gonna be there, he's going to take majority of those rushes away from those particular guys. Now, he did take some deep shots down the field. He kept trying to get George Pickens involved in the game, which you have to do. But honestly, kind of like the Raiders, this team is going to have to hang their hat on special teams and defense, which TJ Watt, honestly, man, watching that game, he's literally a cheat code. He's a cheat code. They called an offsides on him in the game. I believe it was in the third quarter. I don't think it was offsides. I think he just timed it right, but it happened so quick that the rest were kind of like, I think we got to call that. I think we do. But he's a unit, man. Honestly, if you want to talk about dominant defensive player, TJ Watt. Look no further. It's TJ Watt. Now they travel to Denver. We'll talk about that game later on, but I think Justin Fields is going to get the start. So I would expect more of the same, much of the same. Good defense. Try not to turn the ball over. It's going to be a field goal kicking game. Maybe try to score a touchdown or two, if that, and just kind of play it close to the vest. And I think that's what the Steelers will do until Russell Wilson returns. Now, but who knows? Russell Wilson, it's unfortunate what's happened to his career down the stretch. All right, you look on the other side, the Falcons. I mean, listen, a lot of hype, a lot of hoopla. You bring in Kirk Cousins. You got Bijan Robinson. You got Kyle Pitts. You got Drake London. You got all these offensive weapons out there, and they only mustered one touchdown. I mean, offense did not look great. Granted, though, Kirk Cousins could probably still be trying to learn the offense. Maybe the Achilles, the speed of the game. He's got to get used to that. He did throw 2 interceptions in the game, which didn't help. But I'm not going to hit the panic button on this team quite yet. I think they're going to get some things going. Once they figure it out, but Michael Penix Jr. is waiting in the wings. A lot of people maybe want to see him, but they pay Kirk Cousins. So guess what? That's what you're going to get. So don't hit the panic button quite yet on the Falcons. I think there's still some time for them to work out the kinks because they have all the offensive talent, man. I mean, really, they do. But the Steelers in this particular, I picked the Steelers to win, I think, this matchup just because they're more of a cohesive unit altogether. Your head coach has been there a while, whereas Atlanta's got a new head coach. They got a whole new system. They're trying to do all these other things. A lot of hoopla, a lot of press clippings, all that. I think it might have kind of caught up to them in the end. So, but all right. And finally, questions and takeaways is the Chicago Bears, and particularly Caleb Williams. He did not look good. Number 1 draft pick. Kudos to him. They did win the game, but honestly, Titans gave it away, and via Will Levis. I don't know what the hell he was thinking in the fourth quarter, just kind of flipping that ball out of there. But Caleb Williams, let's get back to him. I mean, he really didn't do much. Which, here's the thing. The media and every social media, everybody just wants to anoint people, right? And I've always been kind of like half in, half in, halfway out on that. You can't always anoint people if they haven't done anything. I know, oh my God, did you see him play in preseason? It's preseason. You're not even playing really complex defenses. You're playing guys that are not going to probably even be on the roster once they make the final 53-man cuts. You can tell that he was a little boggled when in that game. He was late on throws. He just looked somewhat erratic. He didn't feel comfortable. Now, this is the thing about Caleb Williams that you got to understand. He's not going to sit there in the pocket a lot. He's going to try to move around, roll out, because that's what he's good at, right? Granted. But sometimes in the National Football League, you're going to have to play within the confines of the system. And I think he's still trying to figure that out, right? Will they figure it out? I don't know. We'll have to see. That's kind of my saying. You'll have to wait and see, honestly, because they have a lot of talent. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome, Odunze, DeAndre Swift. They got talent there. But he's a rookie quarterback, and we got to remember that. He's not going to just step onto the scene and just be this complete stud. I think a lot of people expected him to do that. I mean, granted, he had a tremendous setup, noon kickoff in Chicago. It was nice and sunny. You're at home. You're playing the Titans. The weather was great, and he just kind of stunk it up. I think he threw for 93, 95 yards. Not living up to the expectations, maybe not set by him, but by everybody else, including myself. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with him. If they're gonna have to kind of slow things down, and figure out a way to kind of get him a little bit more comfortable. He's not always going to play within the pocket. That's not his style. That's not his game, right? We saw that a lot at USC, where he would just roll into the sideline and just gun the football. You can't do that in the National Football League. You got guys that are getting paid to be there. You're not playing, Utah State in week 1, right? And no offense to Utah State, but you're not playing FCS schools. You guys are playing grown men, and the windows in the National Football League are tremendously smaller than it is in college. So, like I said, not panicking on the Bears, but definitely something that you want to kind of keep your eye on as they progress, because a lot of people have this team winning the division or contending for a wild card. I still think they're going to finish 3rd or 4th in this division, just because they're young. They're just a young team, especially at quarterback. So, okay, moving right along, let's talk about surprises. The first one that comes to mind for me is the Cincinnati Bengals. What the hell happened to them? They lost to the New England Patriots, a team that's been all over the media, all over the news, talking about they're going to probably be picking for the number 1 draft pick in the next upcoming draft, and you lose at home to them. Joe Burrow, again, looks disjointed. This is 2 years in a row that they're probably going to start the season 0-2. Now, it gets tough for them because they got to head into Arrowhead in week 2. And do I need to say anything else? I don't know. Defense looked pretty poor. Ramondre Stevenson ran roughshod all over them. Zach Taylor's going to have to figure this out, because they can't continue to start the season ugly. Granted, T. Higgins was out. What's his name? I lost track of his name now. The other receiver that they got there. What is his name now? Chase, right? I forgot his name. Jace, right? He played, but three catches for 14 yards. Come on, man. So, granted, he wants a contract, so I don't think he put his best foot forward there, and it showed. I mean, this and Joe Mixon went off. You don't think that they're missing Joe Mixon? They probably are, right? They thought they can do some bargain basement shopping and maybe get another guy in there. Nah, Joe Mixon is a dude, and he proved that against the Colts, and they could have used his services on Sunday. So, big surprise for me on how they kind of I'm not surprised in the fact that they started slow. Because this is what they do, right? But just losing to the Patriots at home is a big surprise. Another surprise for me, Caleb Williams, we kind of just talked about. 14 for 29, 93 yards. That's the stat line on him. This is his first time against a real legitimate professional defense. And that pass rush was getting to him. For those the average football fan who do not know Jeffrey Simmons, I believe he's a nose tackle or defensive tackle for the Titans. He's a real one. And he was getting that pressure. And I don't think Caleb Willis has ever really kind of felt that pressure before. And honestly, if it wasn't for the defense and the special teams that bailed him out, the Bears probably should have lost that game. And Will Levis bailed them out. So I was a little surprised in how he played. I didn't expect him to throw for 300 yards or anything like this, go crazy, set a NFL rookie record. But I thought he would complete more passes. So that was kind of a shocker for me. But like I said before in the previous segment, maybe he's got to slow it down a little bit. And just kind of find guys, maybe not try to get the deep ball or the exciting play. Just maybe the check down is okay. But that was a surprise for me. Another surprise for me is the play of the Dallas Cowboys on the road in a game where they were the underdogs. I believe they were plus 2.5, and they smacked the Cleveland Browns, smacked them. Offensive line held up. Myles Garrett, I think he might have had one sack, but they did not really affect Dak Prescott whatsoever. So shout out to them. Michael Parsons played well. He's up for a contract as well too. Defense really good too. I mean, they forced 2 interceptions if I'm not mistaken. Trayvon Diggs got one. Eric Kendricks got one. Special teams again. So surprised that they were able to put it all together, because that's the thing with the Cowboys. I followed them for 30 plus years. They never ever kind of put everything together. And they kind of did that in a tough spot. I mean, Cleveland has talent. We didn't expect them to be so bad. I guess they should have been on my biggest surprises too. But the Cowboys, shout out to them. And Atlanta's offensive woes, I think that was kind of a surprise to me. I know that things were going to start slow for them, but I felt like at some point, like, come on, you got weapons, and we gotta find guys, right? Bijan Robinson maybe not utilized, but credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, TJ Watt made it difficult for them, right? He was literally in Cousins' face all day. I think it's, like I said, it's gonna take time. They're gonna have to mesh, and maybe they'll get a little bit more comfortable. Listen, because we all know what Kirk Cousins is at the end of the day, right? He's a good regular season player. He's got more than enough talent on his team. They got to get it done. And my final biggest surprise was the defense, or the Lions in general. Like, they almost choked it away, but they found a way to win that game, especially that overtime drive where they just pounded the rock, leading up to the touchdown, the game-winning touchdown against the Rams. Matthew Stafford looked pretty good. I was a little more impressed with the secondary there. They added guys like was it Carlton Davis. They drafted Terrion Arnold from Alabama. They added Amik Robertson from the Las Vegas Raiders, so to kind of bolster that secondary. So this team will play really well in man-to-man, because those guys are really man-to-man corners. So good for them. I think they did a good job. Although, Cooper Kupp went off, but listen, that's Cooper Kupp, bro. He's good. So, and then Jameson Williams, like, where did he come from? 5 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. They're going to need more of that. I know Amon St. Brown didn't really have a great game from a fantasy perspective, but if Williams can continue what he's doing, this guy, the sky's the limit for him. So a little surprised on how they were able to attack on defense, in a unit that's kind of been questioned the last couple of years, but they got the job done. So, shout out to them. Those are my biggest surprises. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything. Let's talk about these matchups for week 2. So it starts Thursday night. Let me get my graphic up for you guys here so you guys can see this lovely graphic that I've constructed for you guys here. All right, so it starts Thursday night. We got the Buffalo Bills on the road taking on the Miami Dolphins. Now, both teams face a short turnaround for Thursday night's game. The Bills will avoid playing in the harsh sunlight of Hard Rock Stadium. For those who've never been there or have seen that, it's brutal. It's brutal there. And the visitor section, you're literally smack down in the sun. That's how the old Texas Stadium used to be, where the Cowboys used to play. The Cowboys would be in the shade, and the opposing teams would be stuck in the dark colored jerseys, just baking. All right, so they don't have to worry about that. It's going to be nice, cool, calm conditions. Now, Buffalo's recent comeback against the Cardinals wasn't particularly reassuring if you're a Bills fan, because you didn't expect to struggle with them like that. You had to come from behind to beat the Cardinals. Like, I didn't even think I would even be able to utter those words and put that in a sentence, but they did. Now, on the other note, the Dolphins have lost twice to the Bills, and recently, and the Dolphins don't play well against playoff teams. That's just a fact. I mean, so they just don't. So here we are. Buffalo is considered still top dog in this division. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win this game until the Dolphins can prove that they can be consistent and legitimately beat playoff teams. It's one thing to beat Jacksonville. You had to come from behind to do that. Now you're playing against Josh Allen, who's arguably one of the best quarterbacks, better quarterbacks in the National Football League. How are you going to play? The only thing they got going for them is at home. But the Bills have the Dolphins number. And that's just a simple fact. So I like the Bills to win that game on the road in the Thursday Night Football matchup. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints traveling to Jerry's World, the Jones Mahal down there in Arlington, Texas, and to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, we all know the exploits of Dallas Cowboys this past weekend against Cleveland Browns. Saints had a day of themselves. Granted, they did play the Panthers, and I don't know if the Panthers knew that was a regular season game. I don't know if they still were thinking it's preseason. It was the fourth game. I don't know. But Cowboys are favored basically by a touchdown. Listen, the Saints are still missing some pieces on the offensive line, and that's not something that you want to hear going into this game against Dallas's front seven, right? You got Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, some other guys, some Marcus Nealon, a rookie who I've been following. He's been getting after it a little bit. That's not what you want to see. So Saints fans, you probably are like on a high because, oh, wow, we just had a great game. We blew out the Panthers. We're kind of slow your roll. It was the Panthers, right? You didn't play a playoff team. You played the Panthers. I like Dallas in this one at home. This is a good spot for them. Granted, the Saints, they got some talent. I mean, Alvin Kamara is not a slouch. Derek Carr can carve you up, if you give him time. And Chris Olave is really good too. And they have another wide receiver there, I believe, Shaheed. He's really good. He's solid too. He had a good game, but again, it was against the Panthers who were playing a preseason game where the Saints were actually playing to win a regular season game. So, but I like Dallas in this spot to go to improve to 2-0 and get the home win. Now, all right, let's talk about the next game, the Giants and Commanders. Now, both teams had pretty bad performances to open up week one. The Giants struggled mightily on defense against Sam Darnold, while the Commanders with a rookie quarterback had their own defensive issues themselves. Now, the Commanders did show some promise with Jaden Daniels towards the end. He rushed for 2 touchdowns, and literally the Giants had no standouts. The Giants had nothing positive to report other than the fact the game was over. That was it. So now the Giants, they're probably going to be the worst team. Daniel Jones is not it. It's a close line. I believe it opened up at like -3. What does the graphic there say? 2.5, -2.5. I think in some spots it's -3. But I like the Commanders at home to win this game. Just because I feel like they have more on the upside than the Giants are just a dumpster fire. I mean, literally, that they have. If you're a Giants fan, you are not loving life at this point. I will say that. Doesn't look good for them. But I like the Commanders. All right, moving on. We got the Indianapolis Colts on the road taking on the Green Bay Packers. We all know what happened to Jordan Love, unfortunately sustaining that MCL injury, or I believe it was a sprain, but he's going to miss at least 3 to 6 weeks. Enter Malik Willis. If you watched my show on Sunday, I have no confidence in Malik Willis whatsoever. He has this deer in the headlights type of persona when every time I see him play. The Colts should come in here and just smack the Packers. I mean, just come in. The way the Colts play now, Anthony Richardson only completed like 9 passes, but he's a better quarterback than Malik Willis. Now, granted, the Packers do have some talent, but will Malik Willis be able to distribute the football? Granted, I'll give this to Malik Willis. He was on the Tennessee Titans, and maybe they didn't have everything at his disposal that he does now. So maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But if I'm just picking right now, I got to go with the Colts in this game. They pushed the Houston Texans to the brink, and we could all agree that the Texans are one of the top teams in the AFC, if not top 3 or 4. And the Colts almost pulled that game off. So I like the Colts on the road to win this game in Green Bay, only because Malik Willis is the quarterback and Jordan Love isn't. Okay. All right. We got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars coming off of a pretty disorienting loss. I guess that's the best way to say it. You're up, mightily against the Dolphins, everything looking good. Travis Etienne fumbles, and it kind of just, it breathed the life for the Miami Dolphins. If he scored that touchdown, that's pretty much ball game, but they don't. One thing last week, the Jaguars did struggle on 3rd downs against the Dolphins, so they're going to have to improve against that, or moving forward against the Browns. Now, the Browns, we already talked about them. Deshaun Watson looked ineffective whatsoever. Raising downs that he has the ability to make plays anymore. Like, not even just be a quarterback. Can you just make a play, bro? So not looking good for them. I'd like the Jacksonville Jaguars in this spot at home to get the win. I believe it's a -3 at this point in time of the show when it was recorded. I like the Jags to cover that one easily over the Browns. And it's sad because like I said before, the Browns have talent, but they just don't have what it takes at quarterback. Okay, we got the Jets on the road again, heading over to Nashville, Tennessee to take on the Titans, who basically gift wrapped and gave that victory to the Chicago Bears. They were pretty much in complete control of that game. Now, look at the Jets. On the other hand, the Jets' performance is uncertain due to Aaron Rodgers' unknown status, which he's going to play, right? Obviously, I don't think he's sustained any major injury, maybe some bruising, some soreness, but he'll be fine. Now, the Titans had a really poor week 1 performance, and the defense for the Jets didn't really show up either. So it's going to be interesting to see how both of those teams are going to kind of come together, because they both really didn't play strong in week 1. Now, just based off the quarterbacks, I got to take the Jets in this one, just because I have no faith in Will Levis either. Like, I think the clock is on for him. If you watched my AFC South preview show, if I'm the Titans, I'm going to kick the tires on Will Levis, but I'm really in the back of my mind, like, I got to go get me another quarterback, because I just don't think he's it. So I like the Jets in this one at home, on the road to win this game. I believe the Jets are the favorites on the road anyway. So Titans are the underdogs at home, but I like the Jets in this matchup. Ravens and the Raiders. Ravens had 10 days to recover since their battle, their matchup on Thursday night to last week Thursday, to open up the NFL season against the Chiefs. So they're going to be well rested, well ready to get going and get after the Raiders. Now, the Raiders offense looked super weak this past Sunday against the Chargers, and some questionable calls too, the decisions made by Antonio Pierce. But the Ravens should cover this one easy. I believe it's -8. In some books, it's like 9.5, somewhere like that. Or on this one, for this particular graphic, it's 9.5. I like this one. If you're betting this one, take the Ravens and the spread at -9.5. I think they'll win by 2 touchdowns. Granted, I think the Raiders defense is much improved, but I think Lamar Jackson and the rest of the Ravens they don't want to start 0-2, and definitely them for sure don't want to lose to the Raiders at home. So I think there's going to be a little bit extra motivation for them to win, and I like the Ravens at this one at -9.5. All right, got Chargers and Panthers. Chargers coming off of a solid win, if I want to put it nicely, against the Raiders. They traveled to Charlotte to take on the woeful Panthers. To me, I thought Dave Canales was going to do something, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe Bryce Young is the problem too. But the Panthers definitely had a poor showing against the Saints. It's like they forgot, like I said, that it was a regular season game and not a preseason game. But I like the Chargers. I think they're going to be able to run the football. They have the better quarterback. And I think they should win this one outright over the Panthers. 49ers at Vikings. I get it. Sam Darnold looked great, but it was against the Giants. You're not playing the Giants this week. You got the vaunted San Francisco 49ers. They had a very strong, phenomenal performance last night against the Jets. I don't expect them to miss a beat on defense. Like I said before, I know the Vikings look dominant against the Giants, but again, it was the Giants. I think the Vikings will push. I think Sam Darnold does have some talent. I like Kevin O'Connell. He's a really good play caller. He's an excellent head coach. I think it'll be a little bit closer than what we think, but I like the 49ers on the road to improve to 2-0. All right, Seahawks at Patriots. A little interesting one here. Seahawks kind of eke out their victory at home against the Broncos, a 26-20 victory. I thought they should have just blown the doors off for Denver, but Denver kind of they kept it sporting. Patriots definitely had a strong performance in week 1. You know, they beat the Bengals and basically just played really good defense. They held the Bengals to literally no big plays, obviously. But for me, the major concern for me is the line. And there's some injury concerns there. Kenneth Walker Jr. is also he left the game on Sunday as well. We got Fant. He's gone. I believe he's going to be gone for some time for Seattle. But Geno Smith is a really good quarterback. He's solid. I like honestly, low key, the Seattle Seahawks are a little bit underrated as far as offensive talent. You got DK Metcalf. You got Njigba, you got Tyler Lockett, Zach Charbonnet is on the slouch at running back as well. So they got some pieces there. This is going to be a close game because I think traditionally the Patriots are really good on defense. They muck up the game, right? And Gerard Mayo, the head coach of the Patriots, if he's anything like his old coach, Bill Belichick, he's going to find a way to take away your best option, right? And, fortunately for the Seattle Seahawks, they have a couple options, but they're going to make you beat them with somebody else. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I like Seattle to win the game on the road and improve to 2-0. The next game, I'm really excited to watch this game. Buccaneers at Lions. It's a rubber match from the divisional round, if I'm not mistaken, in the playoff NFC divisional round last year. Now the Buccaneers had a solid performance against the Commanders, but their defense needs a little bit more, I guess, not tutelage, but I guess the verdict isn't out on their defense quite yet, right? So, but offensively, Baker Mayfield looked really good against a struggling Commanders defense, and then also we saw what happened to the Lions. They kind of struggled down the stretch there. They kind of let the Rams back in it, but this is going to be a really good matchup. I think I like the Lions just because they're at home. They're going to have that home crowd. And I think their cornerback play is tremendously improved. Like I mentioned before, adding guys like Amik Robertson, Arnold, and Carlton Davis. That really, I think they match up well with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. But I like the Lions at home to win that game. So don't let me down, Lions. All right, let's move on. All right, let's talk about the LA Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. This is going to be a fun game. I really think anytime the Cardinals are involved, Kyler Murray is just fun to watch. I ain't going to lie. I mean, but these two teams traditionally always have some really fun games to watch. Now, the Rams offense can't exploit some weaknesses on the Cardinals defense. And we know that Matthew Stafford is going to be locked and loaded. Cooper Kupp is going to be locked and loaded. But the Rams had a rusty performance in week one, but not to mention, though, they were plagued by injuries. We talked about that here at the top of the show. But I think they have a chance to perform well against the Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals definitely can move the ball. We saw that. Kyler Murray is going to make plays. I think they're going to try to get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved a little bit more. I believe he only had one catch for 4 yards. You don't spend a high draft pick on a guy like that. You only get him one catch for 4 yards. So I think this is going to be a over the top time of game. I think it's going to be back and forth. Whoever has the ball last is going to win this game. So, but if I'm a betting man, I'm going to have to take the Cardinals. I think just because at home, I think the woes on the offensive line, I don't know if the Rams are going to be able to overcome this week in and week out. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals, but this is going to be definitely a fun game to watch. I know the Rams are the favorite, but it's so close that I'm going to go with the Cardinals just because they're at home. If this was in SoFi, I probably would be more inclined to take the Rams, but I like the Cardinals at home. All right. Cincinnati Bengals on the road taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, not much more needs to be said about the Bengals. Disappointing loss to the Patriots to open up the season. Now, the Chiefs had their own close win at home. It literally took a toe for them to win. But I'm more hopeful for their future for the Kansas City Chiefs just because of their coach, their talent, and their quarterback play. But this one to me is easy. I like the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs to cover this particular matchup at -5.5. In some spaces, I'm seeing 6, maybe 6.5. But I like them to cover the spread at -6. So take the Chiefs in this one. Steelers at Broncos. Unfortunately, we won't get a reunion of Russell Wilson actually starting against another former team. But both teams offensively, I think, had some bad performances or poor performances. Now obviously Steelers got the win, but I think the defense really anchored them. And obviously the Broncos didn't really start that well either. Bo Nix had some glimpses, but this game is expected to be, I would think, unappealing. It's not going to be a high flying matchup, right? You're just going to see Justin Fields run around with the ball a little bit, but if you want to bet this game, I don't know, man. I would maybe stay away from this game. It might be a pick 'em at this point. So, but if I'm going to pick, I got to take the Steelers. I'm going to take the Steelers over. It's just a little bit more experience. And it's TJ Watt, honestly, man. He is one of those defensive players that can take over a game. And that's exactly what he does. It's very rare when you see guys like that. Myles Garrett from time to time, but anytime I throw on TJ Watt, he's taking over a game in some form or fashion. So I like the Steelers in this one if I had to pick them, but I think this game should be a pick 'em. All right. Chicago Bears. This is a Sunday night matchup. Chicago Bears taking on the Houston Texans. The Bears did win, but despite a poor performance by their offense and their quarterback, their rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams, the Texans should be heavily favored in this one. They are at -6.5, so basically a touchdown. I think you'll see this line shift to maybe about -7, maybe -7.5. But I am going to take the Texans. The Texans are legit. That run, if Joe Mixon can run the football the way they ran the ball the other day, This team's going to be tough, man. And Stephon Diggs had 2 touchdowns himself. So if we thought they were good last year, you added 2 guys like that, sky's the limit for them. Sky is the limit for them. So, and wrapping up week 2, we got the Monday night tilt between the Atlanta Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles. Falcons had a rough game, home game against the Steelers, while the Eagles kind of maybe looked like a contender. I think there's some still question marks with the consistency of the Eagles, because granted, the Packers kind of just choked that game away. I thought the Packers should have put away the Eagles early in that game. But if I'm going to bet this one, I'm going to go with the Eagles at home. Kirk Cousins really does not play well against the Eagles at home, or in Philadelphia, mind you. So I am going, and it's prime time. You all know prime time is not bode well for Big Kirko there. So I'm going to take the Eagles in that particular matchup there. So, all right, back on camera there. So there you have it. That's the breakdown for week 2 of all of the games. So make sure you go back and play back. You get some insightful tips and hints there for those games if you're going to be betting these games. So now let's talk a little bit about fantasy and some impact players. Obviously you got some top waiver wire players that are going to be at the top of the heap if they're even available. One comes to mind is Isaiah Likely. Now he had a tremendous opening night game, 12 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown. He played a significant role over Mark Andrews, who has traditionally been Lamar Jackson's guy. I think we might be seeing a passing of the torch there. We know Mark Andrews is coming off of an injury-plagued season last year. He did play in the playoffs, but didn't quite look himself. Isaiah Likely kind of fits the mold of what they maybe want to do. Now, the only thing with Mark Andrews that keeps him around is that he can block a little bit better than Isaiah Likely, but I think overall, I think he might be more of a fantasy player to be on the lookout for than Mark Andrews. So Isaiah Likely. Another guy, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, look, I'm going to say he came out of nowhere. 135 yards on 10 carries, a touchdown. A lot of people are going to be looking to get him. So if you're top of the waiver wire there, you want to maybe sign him up because Jim Harbaugh is going to run the hell out of his football. And if they continue to do so, J.K. Dobbins is going to be a guy. The only thing with him is injuries. He's had an injury-plagued career, but if he stays healthy, you saw the potential there. So I like him. Now, as far as if you're looking for a quarterback, couple guys out there, Baker Mayfield, if he's still out there, you got to go snag him. Derek Carr, maybe not this week, I would say. Just depends. But a lot of people I'm reading is that they like Derek Carr, but I don't. Not today. Maybe down the line. When you want to snag him, but not this week. Not a good matchup from Justin Fields is the starter now. So if you need a quarterback, you got a guy. Your quarterback's on he's hurt or something going on. Maybe you don't like what's going on with your quarterback. Justin Fields might be a guy because he offers that rushing perspective there. So one thing you want to consider. Excuse me. And then top running backs, we kind of talked about J.K. Dobbins, but Bucky Irving out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think he might be a potential candidate to cut into Rachaad White's workload. And he had a solid output this past Sunday with capping off a 31-yard rush that he had there. Tank Bigsby for the Jacksonville Jaguars might be somebody you want to be out there. Him and Travis Etienne will kind of go back and forth a little bit. That's the thing with these running backs. Unless you have like a Christian McCaffrey or a Bijan Robinson, these other little guys, you want to see who's their backup because you just never know. In Minnesota, we got Ty Chandler. He had 11 opportunities this past weekend in mop-up work with Aaron Jones, who was a really solid player as well too, but you never know. Alexander Madison for the Las Vegas Raiders had a touchdown catch in his matchup. He might be stealing some attempts away from White because White really wasn't hitting the holes the way he was hitting the holes last season, and White had that fumble that kind of put a damper on the Raiders' offensive output this past Sunday. Now, top wide receivers I would probably target Demarcus Robinson. Why? Because Puka Nacua is out. They can't throw every ball to Cooper Kupp, so guess what? It's got to be next man up, and that's got to be Demarcus Robinson. So expect him to be a solid flex or another solid wide receiver number 3 in your fantasy leagues if he is available. Wan'Dale Robinson from the New York Giants. I say that with some trepidation because Daniel Jones is thrown to them, but honestly, Malik Neighbors pretty much non-existent. But a guy like this maybe might get some attempts or some targets. You just don't know with the Giants at this point. But if you are in a pinch, and you're looking to maybe it's already week 1, but you're already looking to shake some things up, that might be an option. Alex Pierce from the Indianapolis Colts went off, had a really good day, 125 yards and a touchdown against the Texans. I think him and Anthony Richardson might have some type of thing brewing there. We'll have to wait and see. But if he's out there, you maybe want to go get him. And Devon Vale from the Denver Broncos, he led the Broncos in receptions with 8 of them this past weekend for the Denver Broncos. So maybe him and Bo Nix are working on something too. So these might be guys like a that you maybe are gonna pick and maybe stash and see how it kind of plays out. Another guy, Jalen Nailor from the Minnesota Vikings. Jordan Addison might miss some time due to some injuries. So Jalen Nailor might fill in for Jordan Addison. Again, you can't throw every ball to Justin Jefferson, so he might be a guy. A lot of these guys are guys that you're going to have to wait and see, but maybe you want to snag them, take them from your opponents before they get them. That's my play there for you guys there. Now, as far as defenses are concerned, anybody playing the Panthers, I would say, would probably be a good one. So this week you got the Chargers. I think that's a very good matchup if you can get the Chargers defense, or if you have them, play them. Houston Texans over the Bears. I think they're going to struggle. The Bears offense is going to struggle against the Houston Texans defense. I think they're going to. Now I get it. The Colts did have their way a little bit towards the end of that game. But I think they're going to shore some things up there, and they're going to figure some of the mistakes that they made in this past game against the Colts, especially on the back end. Guys like Stingley Jr., they don't get beat that often like that. So I think they're going to clean that up. But I like the Texans against the Bears matchup. And then the Colts against the Packers. I think the Colts are definitely going to have their way against the Malik Willis. I think they're going to probably force a couple turnovers from him, whether it's a fumble or interception. So I like that there. So if you can maybe try to get the Chargers, Texans, or even the Colts this week, or start these particular defenses, I think you're in a good shape there. So, all right. So that's my fantasy impacts for the week for week 2. Now, before we close out this episode, we want to talk about some clutch or not so much performers for week 1. You guys, if you saw my clutch players of the week, you know I got to give some love to Joe Mixon. The guy went off. Mind you, he was traded for a 7th round pick. A 7th round pick. He just rushed for 159 yards and went over Indianapolis. He had 30 carries, which is a lot. So he definitely carried the load for that team. So shout out to him for being a clutch performer. J.K. Dobbins, we already know, 139 yards and a key 61-yard scamper. Kind of put away the game there for the Chargers there over the Raiders. We're going to give some defense some love. Gregory Rousseau, defensive end for the Buffalo Bills, got after it. Had a strip sack, and he had 3 sacks on top of that. It helped propel the Bills come from behind win over the Arizona Cardinals. Now, not so much performers of the week. Deshaun Watson struggled, 169 yards, 1 touchdown in some garbage time, so I don't even really count that. And on top of that, he's got another sexual assault allegations pending his way, so get him out the way. Dave Canales and the Carolina Panthers. What happened? I really had high hopes. It's still early. I understand that, but I don't know, man. It's not looking good. Maybe it's Bryce Young. Maybe he can kind of get things going, but the defense played bad too. They just didn't seem ready to play that game. So not so much for them. And finally, the New York Giants. They look terrible. All facets of football look terrible. And really disappointing was their defensive line. Only 1 sack. Really, you got Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. You go and trade for Brian Burns, a.k.a. Spider-Man, and you muster 1 sack? Are those other players a little bit overrated? I don't know. But definitely not top performers. So, but I don't know. I don't know. So there you have it. Those are my clutch, not so much. And yeah, that's it, man. Pretty good episode. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure you guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Grid Network YouTube channel, as well as Clutch Sports Talk Podcast YouTube channel. Expect these videos to come every Wednesday for you guys. I'm going to be dropping them. NFL matchups. You don't want to miss out, and make sure you don't miss out on my live show on YouTube. Clutch Sports Talk NFL Sunday. Wake up with me. That's a live show at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're kind of recap everything, breaking down the game some more a little bit, talk about that, some other headlines, some power rankings. we'll talk about that, get you guys ready and loaded, gearing you up for those games for the Sunday. So you guys don't want to miss out on that. So appreciate you guys for watching the video. I thought it was a really good show the first time out. This is NFL matchup. So like I always say, this is your boy Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk. Never settle till the work is done. We'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.